How's everybody doing tonight? We're doing all right, awesome, man. Well, hey, we're so glad you're with us at the worship center this weekend. If you guys with us, stand to our feet tonight. Let's pray before we start. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here together. And God, as we sing songs about you and to you, God, we pray that you would be blessed tonight, God, and that you would receive our praise, receive our worship, Lord God, and that, God, that you would meet with us tonight in this place, God, in a special way, Lord God. That, God, in a way that only you can meet with us, Lord. We love you and praise you. Everybody said a big amen. Here we go.
There were walls between us, by the cross you came and broke them down. There were chains around us, by your grace we are no longer bound, You call me out from the grave, you call me into the light, you call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Feel the darkness shaking, all the dead are coming back to life. I'm back to life. Hear the song awaken, all creation singing, we're alive, 'cause you're alive. You call me out from the grave, you call me into the light, you call my name and then my heart came alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. What love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive 'cause you're alive. And what love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive 'cause you're alive. And what love we found, death can't hold us down. We shout it out, we're alive 'cause you're alive. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me. Your love is greater, your love is stronger, your love awakens me.
Well, it sounds like you guys are ready to sing tonight. It's awesome. We're going to do a new song tonight. And it basically talks about the fact that we all have a story in our lives and that God has done something in us and he's doing something with our lives for every single one of us. And for all of us, that's a different story tonight. You know, your story might be something that's totally different than mine. And so, this song, though, tonight helps us declare and sing about what God is doing in our hearts together as the church as a whole. And so as we sing this song, let's sing it together. So here we go.
I saw Satan fall like lightning, I saw darkness run for cover, but the miracle that I can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over. My name is registered in heaven. My praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Oh yeah. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed with water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son, and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Oh, my God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. How many guys know that our lives, that He isn't done moving and working us, and that He's continually doing His work in our hearts and lives until the day is completed? So today, if you're here, if you're alive, He's still working. And so let's sing about that. Here we go. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things still to come. Oh, I believe. If you're not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. Oh, I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. There is healing in the power of the Lord Most High. There is courage in the shadow of His wings. There is peace unending over all my life. There is freedom that washes over me. I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul and you fill me up with all I need. speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. I believe, but help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. Help me reach the faith that's under me. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me, God. You understand me. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest, I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest, I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest, I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. So I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. So I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. Bigger than I thought you were. And so, Lord, today in this place, God, we thank you for all that you're doing and all that you're speaking to us in our hearts and our lives, God. And Lord, we just ask that tonight in this place, Lord, that you would speak to us, Lord God, when the silence, Lord, steals our voice, as this song says, God. And Lord God, when you speak, Lord, help us to fully and quickly, Lord God, to respond to you and what you're trying to say to us.
And Lord God, we stop all negotiation with you, the God of all creation. And we say yes to you, to what you want to do in our hearts and lives, God, and to your ways. And we love you, and we praise you. And everybody together said a big amen. Come on, you got some praise tonight. All right, you guys can be seated tonight.
No matter how old we are, we always remember what our dads say and do.
My dad is more like Jesus than your dad.
Nuh-uh. My dad doesn't let anybody eat any food until we pray for it.
My dad prays for 1 minute every day.
You know what? Our church has pancakes.
This is what my sister and mom use for their blush. My dad says that mean kids never know what they're talking about. Because their parents don't know what they're talking about either.
My dad says to punch meanies in the face. Then my mom says, don't ever do that. And my dad goes to timeout.
My dad's beard is itchy whenever he kisses me.
My dad takes me to church so we can learn to be just like Jesus. My daddy prays for me. Then he makes me stop talking and go to bed. Then I get a flashlight and read my comic book. That's a sin. He's sinning. No, not. Sinner. No, not. R2. R2.
My dad said that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it.
My dad never stays mad at me.
My dad taught me to forgive because Jesus forgives us every time we ask.
I want a mohawk.
I wish I had hair. It's okay. Your hair will probably grow back.
Thanks for being our dads for all our lives.
Well, welcome, church, and happy Father's Day weekend to all of our amazing dads. Can we get up for the dads real quick? You guys do an absolutely amazing job. And how do I know? Because I'm a dad myself, all right? I'm a dad of 4 kids. 3 beautiful daughters, pray for me, and 1 rough and tumble boy, so pray for me even harder. But we know how hard you guys work. We know the work that goes into being a dad each and every week, each and every day. So moms, kids, I say you take this weekend as an opportunity to spoil dad. Let him watch his favorite movie, right? Let him or cook him his favorite meal, and even laugh at his cheesy dad jokes. Can y'all do that? Okay, laugh at his cheesy dad jokes. But if you are a dad in the room here and you didn't have a chance to make it by to our Father's Day drive-thru this last Thursday, then we have a gift that we want to give you that you missed out on Thursday. It is a really, really cool credit card size multi-tool. So at the conclusion of the service day, we're going to have one of those for you as you exit the building. But we also want to give you a chance to enter in for our Father's Day raffle. We are raffling off a really, really cool DeWalt Complete tool set, right? Okay? This thing has drills, it has a saw, it has flashlight, it has a charger, batteries, and a really neat carrying case, okay? It comes basically with everything except a shovel, which is too bad because a shovel is a groundbreaking invention. And that went over just like it did at home. Dad joke, you're welcome. All right, guys, I couldn't miss an opportunity to tell a dad joke, and I also don't want to miss out on an opportunity to connect with our first-time guests. If you're a first-time guest here today, or maybe you're watching on social media, Facebook or YouTube, then we want to connect with you. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Get your phone out right now. If you're a first-time guest, either here in the room or watching, get out your phone and text NEW, N-E-W, to 833-694-0128. We want to connect with you guys. We want to get to know you, and we want to start this journey with you. But if you're a first-time guest here in the room today, then I want you to stop by our first-time guest table as you exit the building today, right over here in the front lobby, and I'm going to have a special gift waiting just for you. So if you're a first-time guest in the room, be sure to swing by and get that gift. But also, speaking of special gifts, we have something really cool happening for your Wombaland and TWC kids. This is happening June 24th from 4 to 7 right here at the Worship Center. It's going to be out in the parking lot, and we are going to do a thing called Summer to Go. It's going to be a drive-through where your kids come through, they're given a sand bucket, and they go around, and some of their most favorite leaders from Wombaland and TWC kids are going to be putting all kinds of gifts in this bucket, from a water gun to popsicles to sunglasses. And at the very end of the drive-through, we are going to have a dunk tank set up with one of their favorite leaders in it, and the kid is going to have the option to dunk or not dunk. And every kid I've talked to so far says they are going to dunk. And that's okay, because it's going to be hot out there. So kids, be sure to dunk us if you'd like to. We're all on board with that. So you guys be sure to bring your kids out for that. It's going to be an amazing time. It's a way that we can bless y'all here, and just a really creative thing we can do with everything that's going on right now. But also, I want to remind you guys that we have several different options to give here at the Worship Center, okay? You can give by going to twc.church. You can give by visiting our mobile app and texting TWC Church to 77977, or you can give simply by mailing a check in here to the church office. But also, if you're in the room tonight, we're going to have buckets as you exit the building that you can leave your offering in. But whichever way it is you choose to give, I just want to say thank you. Because of your giving, because of your generosity, we're able to do really cool things like the Father's Day drive-through, the Father's Day raffle, and our Summer to Go for our Wombaland and TWC kids. So once again, thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your eagerness to give each and every week as we carry on the mission that God has placed on our hearts. Now, before we get into the message, check out the rest of these announcements.
Hi, my name is April, and no matter where we are or how we're meeting together, here at TWC, we're all about leading people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. The CARE Network is excited to announce that we're launching the TWC Prayer Wall on twc.church/prayer. This will be a place for anyone to submit a prayer request and praise report, as well as a place for our prayer warriors to go and lift these requests before the Lord. We encourage everyone to frequently visit this wall and spend time praying over each request. Let's see how God moves in and through our church. Guess who's coming back? That's right, Wombaland, Wombaland Clubhouse, and TWC Kids are ecstatic to be coming back Sunday, July 5th for the 9:30 and 11:15 services. Capacity will be limited, so while you're reserving a seat for yourself, you'll have the option to reserve one for your 0th through 5th graders as well in each of their environments. A few extra precautions will be taken to ensure that your little ones and students are as safe as possible, with temperature checks, hand sanitizer as they enter the room, and face coverings are recommended for K through 5th grade, but not required. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call the office to speak with Sherry or Zach. We look forward to having your kids back. Now, let's join lead pastor Justin Crispin for week 3 of Daniel. Please sit back and...
Well, it's really good to see everyone here, and if you're watching online, glad that you're making it. We are in a series called Daniel, and I want to pose a question for us, a question that will kind of help guide us in our talk today, and that is this. Have you ever seen someone go through a terrible experience and wonder how they could move forward with their life? Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever walked with someone through a terrible experience, and at the same time as you're walking someone through that terrible experience, you're wondering the whole time, do I have the kind of strength that they're showing during this time? I don't know about you, but there's about 5 different people that I'm walking through very tough times with them right now. And I got to tell you, I am floored at the strength that they're showing during this time. And I'm a person of faith, and I'm a pastor, for crying out loud. And I'm sitting there looking at their life going, I'm not sure if I could have the same strength that they're showing through this difficult time. I'm like, what have they discovered? What did they know? What is that thing? Is it a secret? And come to find out, Daniel chapter 3 actually shows us and tells us that very secret, that there is a secret strength when you're going through difficult times. And so it's not going to be a secret. It's in Daniel chapter 3. But we're going to discover that together. Even though the situations may be different, that strength is the same in all situations. And we are in a series, Daniel, the book of Daniel, probably one of the top 2 confusing books of the Bible, right? And so we said, let's try to tackle this crazy book. But what this book is really showing us is how to answer this question. How, in the next question, next slide. How can I be faithful and influential in a world hostile to my faith? That's what the book of Daniel is really answering. Because Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, they basically are living in an empire, a hostile empire, a hostile place toward their faith. And not only did they remain faithful, to the God that they serve, but they also influenced an empire. So you may find yourself living or working in a place that's a little hostile to your faith, but we have an amazing example in the book of Daniel of these young men who not only was faithful to the God that they served, but they were also influenced, because we're called to be an influencer. We're called to influence the world around us. And so we pick up where we left off in Daniel chapter 2, where Nebuchadnezzar had this crazy dream, and like I said, it was the most confusing sermon I've ever preached, right? It's a crazy dream, and Daniel not only tells Nebuchadnezzar what he dreamed, but he interprets what he dreamed. And he basically was this huge statue, and how it was all segmented of the world empires that were to come, and he was writing this in the 6th century. And so something must have stood out in Nebuchadnezzar's mind. Something about that experience just really grabbed a hold of him, because this is where we start in Daniel chapter 3. Are y'all ready? Okay, 5 people. That's awesome, right? It's all good. It's all good. All right, here we go. Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high, which is 90 feet, and 6 cubits wide, which is 9 feet, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So remember, his dream in Daniel chapter 2 was a statue, and it was segmented, it was in segments. And so he decides to, in my opinion, take that same image of what he saw and actually make a golden image. Now, if you're thinking, well, what is the size of 90 feet? It would be about 2/3 the size of the Statue of Liberty. So if you've seen the Statue of Liberty, it's about 2/3 the size of the Statue of Liberty. But could you imagine 90 feet, 9 foot wide, golden statue? And here we go. And then the verse continues. He then summoned the satraps, the prefects, the governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image they had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, and magistrates, that's a lot, right? And all the other provincial officials, they all assembled, okay, for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. So the question is, why in the world is he doing this? He had this dream, Daniel interpreted the dream, and he says from the end of that dream, he's like, wow, Daniel, your God is a revealer of mysteries. And then he makes this statue, and he invites everyone to come to the statue. There's something at play here. He's not just about to reveal this nice little statue. There's a purpose behind this. He's flexing his political muscle. He's flexing his ability to control. And he's doing this in a way to consolidate power for him. And this is how he does it in the next verse. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, so they're all gathered at the statue, nations and people of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, and here we go, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music. And you thought we had a band, right? You must, that was a dad joke. Thanks, Kay. You laughed at that, huh? All kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Now, this is a little confusing, right? He's gathering so in a sense, he's like, I want you to all gather, and as soon as the music starts playing, I want you to bow down and worship the statue. Verse 6. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, that is crazy that he's gathering the people and says, worship this statue, and if you don't, you'll be thrown into the furnace. So, now, here's the thing. Daniel chapter 2, verse 47, this is just previously, right? This is what he says, and this is just a previous chapter. He said to Daniel, after Daniel gives him the interpretation, after Daniel gives him the dream and everything, he says, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and the revealer of mysteries, for you are able to reveal this mystery. That's where Daniel 2, verse 47, left off. And we're thinking, does that mean Nebuchadnezzar is now going to be following Jehovah, is now going to follow God, that this pagan king is now going to become a God-fearer, a God follower? I mean, is that going to happen? So what happens now between 2:47 and Daniel 3:5? What happens? Because at one moment, it's like he had a moment of clarity. He had a moment of revelation. He was all like, Daniel, I don't know everything about that, but I do know this. Your God is the revealer of mysteries. Why in the world then, in just one chapter later, and I don't know what the time span is, one chapter later, all of a sudden, Nebuchadnezzar loses everything that he had in that moment and starts to make a statue and says, everybody bow down and worship it, and if you don't, I'll throw you in the fire. I mean, that's a crazy thing. And you're like, how could you go from one extreme to the other? And I think the answer is pretty simple, and I think we've all experienced that. We've all experienced a moment of clarity, maybe in our faith walk, or an emotional moment. I call it the camp experience. Have y'all ever experienced that? Where you went to a camp, and when you went to the summer camp, you were like, I'm throwing everything away. I'm going to follow God. I'm not going to do anything. And then 5 weeks later, you're back to your old ways. It's the camp experience. And it just goes to show you that emotions by itself can't change a life. That emotions at some point will run out. That the steam behind a life, and emotions are great, and I love having moments of clarity and revelation from God, but those emotional times have to move us to a plan, and if it doesn't move us to a plan or move us to a life, our lives won't change. Emotion, we can't live on emotion by itself. Can I get an amen in that? That's why we got to be careful, even as a Christian in church world, to not chase emotions, because emotions will only give us so much. Faith has to be deeper than an emotional experience. So, for Nebuchadnezzar, obviously it was an emotional experience. He had a moment of clarity. He was like, Daniel, your God is the God of gods and God of kings. And in verse 5, he's like, anyone who doesn't bow to the statue gets thrown into a fire. He had that camp experience was quick. He's moved on to other things. So verse 7. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations, and again, I think this is hyperbole because they're in one section of the providence, right? All the nations of that section and people of every language fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So everybody's worshiping. And then verse 8, I'm sorry. At this time,
some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound," here we go again, "of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, and the pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace." Verse 12. "But there are some Jews who have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your Majesty." Does that just, when someone tattletales on you, don't you like, It's like, of all the things. So these astrologers, now time out here. Think of this. These astrologers were the same astrologers that Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego saved their hides the previous chapter. And these guys have allowed their jealousy so much because they're like, why are these Hebrew-type slaves that should be serving us, but now they're in authority over us? So their jealousy caused them to say, here's an opportunity for us to get rid of these people. It says this: they neither serve, get this, they neither serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Tattle, 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 tattle. So what does King Nebuchadnezzar do? Does King Nebuchadnezzar say, oh, I'm giving these guys a pass? Because, obviously they're brilliant. They've done some good stuff for us. No. Verse 13. Furious with rage, because that's what happens when you mess with someone who has a sensitive ego. That's what happens. Furious rage. Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. The next slide, yeah. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "It is true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up." He's like, is it true? Verse continues. "Now when you hear the sound," so I'm going to give you another chance, "of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I have made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace." Thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. And then, I love this part. This is so good because this reveals to us that this is not just a power encounter. This is not just a thing where Nebuchadnezzar's trying to show off his gods. No. This is a political play. He says, then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? He's not saying, I just want you to worship my gods. He's doing this as a way to control the people. He's doing this to consolidate his power. And why is he so driven with fear? Think about it. Why is he so scared? He's the most powerful man in the world, and yet he's like looking at his power, and he's like trying to be controlling, and he's scared. He's making all these decisions, irrational decisions, because he's scared. He's fearful of losing power. Why? Because the previous chapter, Daniel told him, "King, you're great and everything, but there will be another that will come after you. There will be another kingdom, because all empires in all nations in all governments will have an expiration date on it." And so he's scared. He's wanting to consolidate his power because he hears and he knows of the vision of the future. So he's like, well, we'll figure this thing out. So he tries to consolidate his power, and he says to them, what God is going to rescue you from my hand? So you're Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You're sitting there among everybody, face down, prostrate before this statue. What do you do in that situation? You're in Babylon, right? You're in Babylon. You've been ripped from your nation. You've been ripped from your family. And you're here. Could you make an excuse and could you figure it out and say, you know what? I think we could change the system from the inside. So why don't we just bow now? And then we can change the system from the inside. But they don't do that. In this moment, you know what they do? This is amazing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar," this is one of my favorite verses of the whole Bible. I'm telling you, if you need to get something tattooed, I'm just saying this verse. Just suggestion, right? It'd be even cooler if it's Hebrew too, right? King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. Is that just amazing or what? And maybe it's just me, because I feel like, and I don't know if you have the same disease that I have the disease of I have to debate everybody and everything on every subject. And I'm sitting there for everything. I feel like I have to defend Christianity. I have to feel like I have to defend the church in general. I have to defend the church in the medieval times. I have to defend all this kind of stuff. And I feel like I'm constantly defending. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is like, no, we don't even need to talk about this. We don't even need to defend ourselves. It's obvious where we stand. We're standing. Everyone else is bowing. We're standing. We don't even have to give you a reason why. Isn't that awesome? Sometimes you don't need to have an argument. Someone needs to write that down, right? That's good. Sometimes you just don't need it. And a great wise saying is, never argue with stupid. So that's just free. That's something else. But all right. So they say we don't have to defend ourselves. The next verse. Now, this is so rich. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able. Can everyone say able? Able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. You're threatening us with your hand. Guess what? Our God's hands are bigger. And he will deliver us. This is huge. This is a statement, and you probably like, I get it. But get to the degree of their faith. Verse 19. But even if he does not, ooh, that's good. We want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Now, this is so huge, and I feel like this is so timely for our world right now, because there is this difference, and we have to understand the difference between my faith and God's sovereignty. There's a difference between my faith and God's sovereignty. Notice what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said. They said, God is able. We believe he has the power and the ability to deliver us. But if he doesn't, if his sovereignty, because God has a plan, and if he chooses not to deliver us in this moment, guess what? We're still not going to bow down. We're still, because we believe in God's sovereignty. God has a plan and God has a purpose. And sometimes he may deliver us from this, but even if he doesn't, see, that's beautiful. This idea of faith. Because sometimes as Christians, can I just go here for a little bit? Sometimes as Christians, we tie our faith into promises that God never gave. And sometimes we will I've heard people say, God wants you to be rich. So what does that mean? That God has abandoned you if you're not rich? Or God, if you really believe, then God will heal you. And we wrap our faith around statements and beliefs that really God never promised. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew the difference. They said, God has a plan, and guess what? God is able, and I hope he does. But even if he doesn't, I still have my trust and faith in him. And as Christians, we should do the same. We should be careful not to wrap our faith around what we believe, but in who we believe. And believe that our God is able, and we hope in this situation he does what we want him to, but in a lot of situations, he is God, he is sovereign, and he has a plan, and none of what I believe will change his purpose and his plan. Thanks, Steph. So, all right, here we go. Get this. Verse 19. The Nebuchadnezzar was furious. Why is he furious? Because for the longest time, Nebuchadnezzar could manipulate populations. He could manipulate his people. He could manipulate all, because people are all about self-preservation. I threaten to kill you, and you will do what I say. But you can't control someone who doesn't want to preserve their life. You can't control him. And that's what he ran into. He was furious that these guys would sit there and go, yeah, throw it in the furnace, throw it in the furnace. And he's like, I can't control these guys. So he's furious with them. And he says, furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And his attitude toward them changed. It did. And guess this is what he does. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter. What is this all about? A furnace without being 7 times hotter is going to kill anybody, right? Why is he doing this? This is theatrics. He's trying to up the ante. Look, guys, I'm doing the billows. It's getting hotter. 7 times hotter than usual. And if you want to know, they could only get it up to 1,500 degrees at that time. You can now, a lot more now, but at that time in the ancient world, you could only get it to 1,500 degrees. Don't ask me how I know that, but I just do. Than usual. And commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I mean, he didn't get the weaklings. He was like, we're going to get the biggest and baddest to come and tie them up. See? It's all theatrics. And he threw them into the blazing furnace. The verse continues. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The verse continues. The king's command was so urgent that the furnace is so hot. This is what happens. That the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men firmly tied and fell into the blazing furnace. So at this point, the furnace is so hot that the people throwing Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire actually die because of the heat. And so, again, the theatrics just backfired on him. So what happens in this moment? Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement. And he asked his advisors, because Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are in the furnace. And then he says, weren't there 3 men that were tied up and threw into the fire? Verse continues. They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoa, 4. 4 walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. So again, don't get mad at Nebuchadnezzar's theology. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's like, there's something going on here, and I think it looks pretty divine. You see, this leads us to the secret where if you've walked through a fire in your life, you've discovered it yourself, is this. God sometimes doesn't deliver from the fire, but he chooses to deliver in the fire. Oh, that was so good. I'm going to do it one more time. All right. To give you a chance to amen, because it don't get better than this. This is all I got. God sometimes doesn't deliver from the fire, but he chooses to deliver in the fire. Amen, right? That is everything. Because it was in that moment that we're reminded that sometimes we're going to walk through fire or we're going to walk through some terrible circumstances, but the strength, the grace, the presence, the thing that we need to sustain us oftentimes is not waiting on the outside of the fire. It's waiting on the inside of the fire. And if you want to know where God is, he's waiting for you in the fire. That even though Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the middle of that, guess who's there with them? God's there. And some would say, that's Jesus. And I would absolutely agree. Jesus is in there in the fire. There is another one in the fire. That's good. Verse 26. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted. What do you say at this point? everything you try to do, everything you try to control, you've suddenly realized you may be the biggest, baddest man on earth, but there's something a lot better than you out there, and it's walking around there. And I don't know what they're doing. They're skipping around, they're high-fiving. I don't know. But they're just sitting there having a good time. And the king, he opens the furnace, and he shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out here, come here. It's like, no, king, you come here, right? No, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out of the fire. And the satraps and prefects and the governors and the royal advisors crowded around them. So this is not just Nebuchadnezzar. This is everyone's here because he wanted to make a spectacle of them. God had another plan. In the middle of this spectacle, they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was the hair on their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there were no smell of fire on them. The verse continues, then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be, get this, here's another moment of clarity now. Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. Verse continues, get this, they trusted in him and defied the king's command. I love it that he's talking about himself in the third person. And were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any gods except their own God. He's like, I got to hand it to them. These guys are brave. They're courageous. And it goes on. It says, therefore I decree, I love this part, people of any nation and language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Didn't you, King Nebuchadnezzar? Yeah, anybody. Guess what? Guess what he does? He says, be cut into pieces. And their houses be turned into piles of rubble. And for no other God can save in this way. At this point, I think Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, King, let's talk a little bit. You're awfully, you're too lax on it. You want to just kill people. This is not do that. This is not God's way. This is not Jehovah's way. Cut into pieces. And the verse continues. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. And just get this. They go from being basically ripped from their homeland, put into a hostile environment for their faith, and not only do they remain faithful in the midst of all kinds of persecution and victimization and all kinds of slander against them, they stand true and faithful, and guess what? God had their back the entire time. And they were willing to die for their faith. They didn't know if God was going to be there in the fire, but they knew that they would basically put everything, they say they're going to trust in him no matter what. What a powerful, powerful picture for us today. Powerful picture that God was waiting for them. And in the midst of all this, they're now promoted even more. Not only are they faithful in a hostile empire, but now they're influencing this hostile empire. Wow. Now, there's a story of an author, of a great author. His name's John Lennox. He's one of my favorite. And he talks about, he's this brilliant scholar that right after 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell down and communism in Russia was all in kind of upheaval, many missionaries and ministers went to visit Russia because there was a fledgling, Christians. There were Christians in Russia during that time, and I don't know if there were a lot of people in here that are old enough to remember that during communist reign, you weren't allowed to be a Christian in Russia. You would be persecuted. And so John Lennox, the wall fell down, and he goes to Russia, and he discovers and has a conversation with this man who is a Christian. And this man begins to tell him that he has lived in this, they call the Gulag. Have y'all heard of the Gulag? The Russian prison, which is a Siberian work camp. And I'm telling you, that just get the mental picture there. Bad. And why is this man imprisoned at the Gulag? Because he was teaching his kids from the Bible. And so he's sent. I just want to let that set in just for a little bit. He's sent to be in a prison because he was teaching his kids the scriptures, maybe Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so he finds himself in this Gulag, this camp, this prison camp, and he said this to John Lennox. He said, I saw things that no man should ever have to see. And he would explain some of the things that he saw. And he was just sharing it. John in his book was just saying, I just began to turn white because I'm like sitting there going, how could I have this kind of strength? How could someone survive? All the crime they did was teaching their kids the Bible. And we're sent to a camp. For years. He said, I saw so many horrific things. And so this man is looking at John Lennox, and John Lennox is just kind of sitting there just like, he's white as a ghost because he's just shocked. And so the man looks at him and says, you couldn't cope with that, could you? And John says, I got to be honest with you. I don't think I could. I don't think I could. And what this man says next is exactly what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego experienced. This is what he said. He said, nor could I. Nor could I. I was a man who fainted at the sight of his own blood, let alone that of others. But what I discovered in the camp was this. He said, I discovered something that I didn't ever discover any other time, but when I was in this camp. This is what he discovered. God does not help us face theoretical situations, but real ones. Translation, God was in the fire, and he was waiting with me. And I didn't know I had the strength till I showed up, and he was there. He said this, like you, I couldn't imagine how one could cope with in the gulag. He continues, but once there, I found that God met me exactly as Jesus promised his disciples when he preparing them for victimization and persecution. I love that. This little section of this quote, God does not help us face theoretical situations, but real ones. God doesn't, and that's why when you and I are walking through difficult times with someone and we're trying to be there as a support system and we're sitting there like, I don't know what to do, but just pray with you and let you cry on my shoulder. That's why when we look at their life and we say, I could never be strong enough, you're right. Because God's strength doesn't prepare us for theoretical situations. It only prepares us for real ones. And the next time you find yourself going into the fire, the next time you find yourself walking in a terrible circumstance, I want you to always remember God's waiting for you in the middle of the fire. And that strength that you are just blown away at is waiting for you. His peace, his patience, his presence, and his power is waiting for you and I as we walk through the flames. Now, maybe you're not even a Christian, and you're here, or you're watching online, and maybe that's the very thing that really caused you to take notice of Christianity is when you see Christians suffer well, and you're thinking to yourself, there must be something to this. So this is, I thought, what do we do in this moment? I think this is a special moment. Because honestly, I don't know what you're walking through. I don't know what you're walking through either. And maybe you're walking through, you would say in your words, I'm walking through the fire right now, Justin. And I'm just relying on God's strength. Or maybe some of us in here, everything's going well for us right now. Maybe God's preparing us right now so soon we may be walking through the fire. I don't know. But when you do, I want you to always remember these words. These words from a song that we sing. Check out. There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Isn't that true? There's a grace that you will only experience when you're walking through fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. There's always another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, when I see that space of where I used to be and this thing that I'm walking through right now, here it is. I know I will never be alone. May we today remember that and live this out. So why don't we do this? Can we all stand up right now? And let's close out our time together with singing this song, and I want you to sing really loud at home too. Come on, let's sing.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Was another in the fire. Standing next to me was another in the walls, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free? Is a cross that bears that burden. Another died for me. Is another in the fire. Oh, another in the fire. All my dead lifted dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall into space between what remains of me and the reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. Is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, power set me free. Is a grave that holds nobody. Now that power lives in me. Is another in the fire. Oh, is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between west and I can feel the ground beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. Yeah. There's nothing stands between us and you tonight, oh Lord. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may, in the space between all the things at sea and this reckoning. I know I will never be alone. Oh, I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me? I count the joy from every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know it's where you'll be. Oh yeah.
Amen, amen. Well, thank you guys for being with us tonight. We'll see you guys next week.